This is Microsoft Visual C Sharp Express. Let me hide that one so we can see what we have. There are three panels. The first one here contains all of your projects. You can open a project or create a new one. The main section here contains news if you're connected to the internet. I only have internet on a secondary computer because otherwise I waste so much time just surfing the net. And you also have some great links down here with good information for beginners. To create something, we can either click here on Create Project, or we can go to File and New Project. Here you have many different kinds of projects. The name for these are templates. Templates are basically just a few lines of code to get you started. There are two main types here that we will look at. The Windows application is a normal Windows application with very much like Visual C Sharp with the normal buttons that you can click on and things. The second one is a Windows game. These two here were installed with XNA Game Studio Express. If you don't install that, then you don't have those. You also have the Space War Starter Kit, for example, that you can try to pick apart to learn more. The main difference between a Windows application and a Windows game is that a Windows application is event-driven. This means that Windows calls methods inside your project. You make methods that react to what Windows tells it to do. For example, Windows can tell your program that a user clicked a button, and then you react to that by changing something. However, a Windows game is the other way around. A Windows game is state-driven. It has a tight loop that just calls the same method over and over and over again, and it doesn't wait for any signal from Windows to react to it. Just does its own thing all the time. Later on we will look at Windows applications. We're going to need that for some parts of the project, but let's start with a game. We're gonna need a name. They should be only letters. You can mix capital letters and small letters if you want, but they should be not numbers and not any funky other letters such as question marks and stuff. So Windows game, type a name and click OK. Now a lot of stuff happened. We'll try to go through it. Over here you have a toolbox. This one usually contains a lot of components. That's the name of a class that is packed up and put in a toolbox. Components are special because you can just drag them and then you can drop them in the designer, which means you can drag and drop a button, for example, so that or a toolbar or anything you want with finished code for handling that button. As you can see, there are no controls here because a game, the controls that are components that are usually here are they're mostly for Windows programs, not games. So I'm gonna remove that one. And then we also got a properties window, which is mostly used for changing different variables of those components or controls that we just removed the toolbox for. So we'll remove this one as well. Now the one we kept is good. We will keep that one. And this one shows your solution. A solution can contain several projects. Right now, our solution only contains one project. Later on, there will be more than one here. A project contains many files and folders. However, when this is compiled into an executable file, then all of these files will be packed up into a single .exe file. So one project is actually only one file when you're finished, but while you're working, you split it up on several files because it becomes clearer then. Another name for this is an assembly. An assembly is basically another word for compiling something into an executable file. Not so important now, we will get back to that later perhaps. Okay, let's look a bit at the code that we have here. We have a namespace that has the same name as our project, so that's pretty nice. It's our own namespace. There are many other namespaces as well. We have a class to start with, which is called game1. This is not a particularly good name because this class will be the engine of our game. It will be similar to the contents page of a book. It will it will pack up everything into all the classes into objects and get them started. So we should probably rename this one to engine. However, I can't just type a new name here. I'll show you. If I right click on it and then I go to find all references, you can see that in 4 different places in our code this class is referred to. So if I just change the name here, then these other 3 places, they will not refer to the new piece of code. There is a function that we can use instead by clicking F2, refactor rename. F2 refactor is another name for changing code without making it do something new. So if we type engine in here instead, then it will update all places. I'll do the review so you can see. It's going to change in one place. It's going to change 2, 3, and 4 different places. The Program.cs doesn't change anything and the game doesn't change. So it was changed in 4 places, which is the same as the 4 references. So that sounds good, so I'll click apply. You can trust this function, so in the future I'll turn off the preview. Now you can see that it says engine there instead. It also changed the method name down here to engine because that is a constructor. That is the first method that will be called inside this class when it is created. However, one thing did not change. If we go to the Solution Explorer, you can see that the name is still game1. You can see the name up here is still game1. That is because this is not game1.class. This is actually game1.c#. It is just a file containing code, so it could contain several classes. However, it is a good idea to have one class per file. So I'm just going to take this file and rename it to engine. And then I will only have one class in it. If I'm going to make a second class, I'll make a new file inside the Solution Explorer as well. Now this file has a lot of junk in it that we haven't discussed yet. So we're going to start with another file. We're going to start with the program file instead. So I'll double click on that. And as you can see, this one is much shorter. I'll start by deleting all of this, and then we will work on it so you see what's going on. I'll type slowly in the beginning so you can see what's going on, and then we'll speed up later. First, we needed a namespace, right? I'll click N, then you get a new window. This is called IntelliSense. It is a feature of Visual C#. It's trying to guess what we want to write, what we want to type. And it's suggesting a namespace, which is great. And how do you pick that then from this list, from the keyboard? I could just click on it with the mouse, but since I already have my hands on the keyboard, I want to keep using the keyboard. And the trick is to use the next logical terminating character. This is usually a space or a comma or a semicolon, but as you can see, the little symbol here is a broken document. That means that this is a code snippet. A code snippet is a short section of code that it can be pasted in, and it pastes it in a little bit everywhere, which means that there is really no next logical terminating character. And in these cases, we use tab instead. So I will click N and then tab. And then I'll click tab again, and I'll show you that some more things show up. So you tab twice when you have a code snippet. And then we get to name it. So we'll name it as before. I'll click enter to jump down into the middle. The first thing we need is a class. I'll start typing class and then space. The name of the file is program, so we should probably name it program as well. Now I click space instead of tab, so I need to make those curly brackets by myself. And inside the class we need a method. Remember that you could name your method anything you wanted, and then Windows doesn't know which method to call. Well, we can use a special name, and then Windows will use this method as the first method it calls when it wants to start up the program. I'll start with void because it's not going to return anything, and the name is main. The main name is special because it will be the first one called. So you can't call any other method main either. This one takes an argument or a parameter. It takes a string. Don't worry about these brackets. We'll talk about them later. A string is a data type that takes text, just normal letters. And we need a label for it too, so we can call it args. That's what Microsoft calls it. And we'll do the brackets as well. Now, what is this? What are the arguments passed in? Well, I can show you. I'll minimize this, and here we have an example shortcut. If I go to properties, I can add something here. God mode, for example. That means that the word God mode will be sent to the main method because it has a parameter that accepts that. So args will store the word God mode. Okay, so what should the main method do? Well, this is the first method, or the only method, called by Windows. So this one needs to get the ball rolling. This one is going to pack up the engine class, put it in an object variable, and then we can use that to access it, to process code and call methods inside it. First we need the data type, and the data type is the engine class name, right? But we should probably put in what namespace it is in as well. So I'll start typing MO, and there you have it. When you type a path in a web URL or on your hard disk, then you use a slash or a backslash. In programming, you use a dot instead. So I'll click period, and now we get to choose between an engine and a program, which is natural because we have the program class in this file and we have the engine class in that file. I'll, I'll pick engine because we're going to pack up an engine into this variable later on. Okay, now we're done with the data type, so we're going to need a label. I'll just call it game. Sounds good. Now remember, before we were pressing semicolon, and then we can do a second line where we assign a value to this one. I'll show you a little trick. You can just assign right away on the same line. When you assign normal data, you just type the value right away, like 1,000. However, when you are packing up code, then you need the keyword new. And we're gonna pack up our engine class, so we'll do the same thing again. And we want to call the constructor of the engine class. And that method was a special method that had the same name. And method calls, they need parentheses, so we'll put that in there. Now there is a method inside the engine class which XNA has already put in there to get the ball rolling. It's not just the constructor we need to call. We're going to need to call this second method as well. And we want to do this on the object that we packed up in memory. So we type game, period, and it suggests a run, which is the name of that method. So that's good. We'll just keep that. The next logical terminating character is parentheses, right? So I'll put that in and a semicolon. Short and sweet, we just call it, and that's it. Now you might be asking yourself a question. Before we could use methods inside the game class, the engine class, we needed to create an object of that engine class. Otherwise we couldn't do it. Well, don't we need to create an object of the program class as well before we can call main? So we need to instantiate that one as well. So we need another class which can instantiate program, and then we need another class to instantiate that class, and so on. Well, there is a trick to end this this eternal layering upon layer upon layer. Well, we can make a method static. We can make an entire class static for that matter. If a class is static, then you can call methods that are static inside it without creating an object. And since Windows needs to be able to call main, then we need to make main static as well. There are a lot of internal things in C# going on when you make something static. When you start our game, then C# will create an instance of the class program automatically because we made it static, so that Windows can call the main method, which is static, without creating any object. Okay, feel pretty done. As you can see, there is an asterisk up there. That means we haven't saved the file yet. There are two ways to do this. You can click on Save All, or you can click Ctrl-Shift-S. I'll click Ctrl-Shift-S, and then the asterisk should disappear. Yep. I think we're pretty done with our little Program.cs, our program class. We can try this out by start debugging. You can just click F5 and it should run our program, our game. It's going to basically make an empty window for us. It's not going to be a very fun game yet. There you have it, a blue screen of a hope, as someone famous called it. I'll close that up, and then next time we can add some code over in the engine file instead. We'll go through the engine file and see what it looks like.